Good morning everybody. In this video I'd like to show you how I make my handmade threads for sewing shoes. Now the first thing I'll show you is a shoe that's already been stitched, and as you can see the stitching along the side there. That's the upper which gets stitched in and then folded back for the sole to go on the top of there. And what I'm going to show you how to make is the threads to do this job, which is called Velchen construction, which means a shoe or a boot made without nails, a Scandinavian design from back in the 15th, 16th century. It goes back a long way, or even further than that if your truth be known, probably Roman times. But the threads certainly do go back as far as Roman times, and the beauty of making your own threads is you can make them at any thickness, as many strands as you like, as long as you like, and to make those you need what we call linen single shoe. This one's made in Northern Ireland, which is pure linen, made by Coates of Barber. Now the part number for that, if anybody would like to have a go at doing this, I'll show you it there. It's from Algios, and there's the part number. The other item you're going to need to do this traditional wax twins, as they're called, is hog bristles. As you can see here, there's a selection of pig whiskers basically, and that becomes your needle, and I normally go for one that's a fairly sturdy one for doing this job. They all vary in thickness here, so if I pick one out there, which would be difficult to see them, that one there, and it might be quite hard to see it, but they taper down and have a split end on, and the end they use for your needle is the thicker end, which is that end. And the beauty of these is they're flexible. You can bend them round corners, and if there's a hole in a shoe, it will follow and go round the corner, unlike a metal needle which is solid, but I'll leave that one out for later. And the part number for those from the same firm, Algios, is you can see that. So that's the two things you need. Another thing you need is what you call cobbler's wax. Now I'll make my own, and I'll pour it into these cupcakes holders, and then pull my cord through it to wax the cord. Now this is made of 50% beeswax, which you get from my own bees, and 50% Stockholm tar. Excuse me. You can buy this from the vets, and the farmers use it for putting on the navels of newborn lambs and calves, and that to stop the flies getting at them and going septic. So that's Stockholm tar and beeswax, 50-50 mix. Melt it together and pour it into these little cupcakes, and that's your wax made. Now the next stage, I will show you how to prepare the cord. So I'll get everything prepared and I'll be back here within 2 ticks. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get single strands of this, and I'm going to make them, stretch it out between 2 arms, which is a fathom, which is basically about 6 foot long, and a little bit, so it'll be about 8 foot long, these cords. And it sounds long, but by the time you've gone through backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards through the insole from the hold fast, which is this line here, and you go through to the outside, you're looking at roughly half an inch return each time you go around, so 8 foot soon disappears. And this is a size 11 shoe that I made several years ago, like a country shoe. I haven't used it much, but that will take all of 8 feet to go right round that shoe. So what you do, you get, I'm going to make this one about 7 or 8 cord, in other words 7 or 8 of these single lengths. Now what you do, to start off with your first one, you need a very, very fine end. And what you do, I don't know whether it'll show on camera or not, you unravel the actual hemp itself and take the twist out of it, the natural twist. And when you get to that stage, it pulls apart like that. And what you're looking for is that very, very fine end there to actually whip into your needle and whip onto the whisker itself later. And that's of paramount importance. So I'll show you that stage again. You're going to have to do this once on the end of each cord. So unravel, take all the twists out of it, then pull gently, and it pulls apart and leaves you that wafer fine whisker on the end. So you do that for eight times, and the next cord that comes together with this one will go back about 4 inches from the end. So what you're doing is leaving a gradual tapering end, which goes through the hole easily. So the first one would be there, the next cord would start here, and you do that for about 3 or 4 times just to get that tapered end in until you've got about eight of these cords together. So we'll go and do that, and I'll be back with you in a tick. So to recap, there's my first cord. The second one I've got in this hand will start about there. So you can see it's a very, very gradual tapering effect. That's about 4 inches from the first one. So then you just hold there, and then you draw that through until you get to the other side. Like I say, this one's, I've made it about 8 or 9 feet long. They can vary. What you have spare next time you can use again on something else. So as I've pulled through, I've got to the end. So what you do, you come back up here, about 4 inches up, and you do that unwinding again. So unwind, and then gently pull. So when you get to the other end, you do this on either end, you see, so you've got another double end there. So it gradually tapers. Then you do the same again for the third one, and then maybe the fourth one. Same again, the third one, come back another 4 inches. So you can see how it gradually builds that taper, it gets thicker and thicker towards the end. So pull that through, like that. This is three cord. I'll make it 7 or 8 for a heavy shoe or a boot. In this case I'm making a boot. So there's my third cord. So you find your first and your second, and you come back past there again another 4 inches, wet the fingers, unravel and pull. And I'll do it once more, because that's enough tapered end then to start with. And again 4 inches back from the first, second, third to the fourth, so you end up with a long tapering end. So you can see the ends there, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the subsequent ones, 5, 6, 7 and 8 can start off where the 4 is. So you only want to do this 4 times to give you a good taper on the end. So we'll get to the other end. This is 4 cord next. Find where you finished off from the third one. Gets a bit fiddly, but when you get used to it, it gets easier. So the third one ended there, so you move back up 4 inches again for your final end, for the final taper. Then you can do 5, 6 and 7, 8 from this, from number 4, if that makes sense. So unravel and pull, oops, unravel it and pull it apart. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, all in a line. So I'll make that up to an 8 now, and I'll come back in a couple of ticks. So there we have it, what you call a twin. So you've got an endless loop of 8, there's 8 cords there altogether. So about 8 foot long, 8 cords thick, or 8 strands, and on either end you've got those tapered ends. So as you can see there, that's where it's the full thickness, and as you come forward they get thinner and thinner until that very, very fine end on each end. That's what you call a twin. So now the next stage is to wax that. So how I do it is I'll get everything ready, because they can get tangled on if you're not careful. What I'll do, I've got a little, just here, I have a little nail which will wrap the cord round, as you can see there. I'll get the wax, hold it tight and wax it. Just run the wax up and down fairly vigorously and it melts the wax. And to get the very end, you just slide it along slightly like that and do another section there. It's difficult to do this on camera, but you get the general idea. So you run that through right down to the very ends, but be very, very careful on the ends, that little fine whiskery end, because you can snap it off with the wax. So I'll go and do that and I'll be back in a couple of ticks. So there we have the cord waxed. Now, I mentioned just a few moments ago about the very end. I'll put it against something like background. I'll put it against this boot. As you can see, we've got an ultra fine end there. I think you can just see that in the camera. This end just here. You see how it tapers? It gets thicker and thicker and thicker. That's what you're looking for to make the ideal thread. Now when I do the very ends, what I'll do, because of that very, very fine whisker there, which you use to whip into the hog bristle itself, you can just see it there and move it around. Rather than drag that through this block of wax, what I'll do, I'll get some wax on my fingers and then gently put some wax onto the very end of that very, very fine thread there. If you break off that very, very fine point there, it'll make it difficult to put your needle on later. So do that with your between finger and thumb with wax on your finger, because it can get stuck to the block and then snap that off, and then basically you're going to make life difficult later. I mean, it only takes maybe 5 or 10 minutes to make one of these cords once you get used to it. But as you can see there, the very, very fine end's still on. That's what you're looking for. So next stage is to twist it all together. And how I do that is, it's difficult to show you, but I will attempt. I'll do it on my leg. Can I get it in there? And what I do, I just rub it on the leg like that to twist it. And grab a hold, twist, and grab a hold, twist, and keep hold of this end. It's difficult to show you, but basically you've got to twist that until you get a twist right to the very end of the thread itself, which is right around that little pin there. So I do this standing up normally, but twist and twist and twist, keep twisting until you've got all the cords together and a fairly tight twist. You don't want it so tight that it's going to start doubling up on it when you let go, but as you can see there, then you give it a quick rub, and then you have a twisted cord. It's very difficult to see it in this light, but wants to be so the twists are all touching each other basically. So you do that right the way through, then give it a rub, then we'll go on to the next stage. So there we are, all twisted. Another rub down with the wax, and we've got two ends. Might be quite easy to see now with them being black. So there's the very, very fine ends, which you've got to be very careful with. You want to retain those because that's what you're going to whip into the needles next. There we go. So I'll grab a needle. This next stage is tricky. So I'll set the camera where I can see against that background there. So I'll just put one of these to one side. This procedure is to do on both sides. And how you go about it is, get your needle, which is the hog whisker, and give that a couple of rubs with the wax just to make it sticky. Now get the very, very end of the whisker. I think you can see the two there, just. There's the whisker and there's the end, it's even finer. You see it? And what you do, I'll just get everything prepared and I'll be back into the tick. So the final stage is to whip this thread, this very fine thread, onto that whisker. And how you do that is, I'll try and do this whilst zoomed in while looking. So my hand's in the centre there, so you get the very, very fine end, and about 1.5 inches from the back, put the very, very fine end between your fingers and up against the whisker like that, and grasp. So then what you're looking for is a twisting motion and a fairly rough spiral till you're about 1 inch from the end. So it's about there. So that's winding towards the tip. Now then what you do, you put the whisker between your fingers and then you start to whip back over the spirals that you've already previously made. So I do it like this. I do it with 2 fingers and 2 thumbs, and then gradually but slowly twist that, and you want the spirals touching each other, so it's like whipped like a bowstring. So those coils, helps if you've got a little bit of wax on your fingers as well. So slowly come back and twist, and keep going until you get to the thicker, past the very, very end of the taper, and you start to pick up on the second cord taper. Slide them together, as you can see there. So they're very, very fine. Pull that up a little bit. Keep them so the barrels are touching each other. And you carry on between your fingers and thumbs, keep it nice and tight. You want to go for over 1 inch or more, of twisting together. Like I say, I haven't done one of these in quite a while myself, so I'm pretty sticky myself. Keep on going, keeping that whisker pulled tight between your fingers as well. This is how the Romans did it, by the way. And it's such a versatile way of doing things. You can, like I said before, you can make things any length, any thickness. Keep twisting, twisting, until you've got it's about over 1.5 inches long there, which is whipped round and round all the way from, so it's 1 inch from the end. That's where the thread starts, and then ends about there. So the last stage is tricky. You get an awl, and you half that thread there. Push the awl through and make a loop. Try and get it 50-50 if you can. It's not easy. You need 6 pairs of hands when you're trying to film it. So separate that through the middle. It's tricky when it's sticky. There we go. So you've got a tiny little loop. See it just there. You get the whisker, put the whisker end through that loop. Get hold of the end of the whisker and the thread and pull, and that's the thread locked. Try not to pull too hard, otherwise it'll unravel. So that's it. That's how you whip the end in, and that's quite substantial. There we go. And if you're careful with that now, that'll stop it until you finish stitching your job. So that's basically it. And you do that on the other end as well, and obtain what you call a waxed twin. You can also top up the twist at the very end, because it's can unravel on you as you're working, but the wax is there to stop it from unravelling, if you know what I mean. So you can always check it and just see if that twist's still in the thread, and just give it an extra one or two and pull. But be very careful when you get near the end that you don't snap the end off. So there's the perfect wax twin. There we go. So that's how you do it. Tricky job, but like only takes seconds once you get used to it. So you can see the pig's whisker on the end there, which will bend. Very, very ductile needle, very, very strong actually as well. It takes some snapping, does that material. So you start off there and you get a gradual taper, and as it gets thicker and thicker as you pull it through there, you can see. So that's how you make a traditional waxed twin. So thank you again for watching. Bye for now.